Start your engines. This is a safety-driven episode of the Podcast Daily. You might even call it a Throttle Thursday. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. And again, this is a position group. As we look back at spring camp, Bill, it's just pretty darn good. And there's maybe not a whole lot more to say, is there?
You want me to collect my thoughts after hearing you say Throttle Thursday? Is that what we're doing here?
You can have a couple. Good. You can have a couple seconds if you need, okay, or you can just say that Ohio State safeties are really good.
I do agree. I do agree that they're good, but I'm going to need a moment.
Okay, good. Well, you can recover.
Are they though? Are they good? They're great at the top. We know that. And then what? So I think that it's actually, interestingly enough, probably the position group that right now, considering how I was very uncertain about linebackers heading into spring, like I know you're very comfortable with Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs, but again, then what? And we have not seen Ohio State finish the season with the same starting safeties that they started the season with in like 5 years. So I think that there's at least a little bit of intrigue as far as who's next in line, exactly how healthy is Malik Hartford, has Jaden Bonsu really ascended? Is there a place for Jalen McClain to make a play this season? I think there's actually some interesting questions.
Okay, well, let's get into it. Which of those questions is most interesting to you, Bill?
I think it generally just the question of is the depth where it needs to be. I don't, Burn, a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most alarmed. Where are you about the safety depth?
Like a 6, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's fair. But 6 is fairly high, especially when you consider some of the other positions on defense where you'd probably be close to a 1, I think, right? So It's an interesting question. The thing that makes me, I don't know, maybe less concerned than perhaps I should be, is that you can move Sonny Styles back to safety if you need to, in my opinion. I think someone like Jordan Hancock probably has some versatility to play in the deep half if you needed him to. Of course, you're talking about getting down to your third or fourth or fifth options if you're doing something like that, and hopefully that doesn't come to pass. But I think with the top 2 and then Malik Hartford presumably healthy and versatility of Sonny, I think they're okay. So I don't find it all that alarming. But it's worth pointing out, right? If we're going to talk about depth, and that's going to be a common theme for all these position group talks, and Ryan Day is going to kind of pound the table talking about how they're going to need a lot of guys to get through the course of this season. I suppose it is a fair question to ask whether or not they have enough bodies at this safety position. So they're good, yes, but Berm is right, I think, to point out, is it a 10 out of 10? Maybe it's not, because you're wondering about just what you have after you get past those top 2 guys.
I can't think of anything that would be more of a disservice to Sonny Styles in this season than having to go back and play safety again. And it would be obviously only done in break glass case of emergency type of thing. But if it got to that point, that would be an absolutely major that'd be a problem, I think, in a way that you don't want to have to open that door, because he's fully through the linebacker portal now. You're a linebacker. You've become a linebacker. We don't need to do this thing where all of a sudden we're well, let's move you back here. We're going to need you here for 2 weeks. And then that would be so bad for his development and for his NFL future, in my opinion.
Or would it help him to continue to show that versatility? Again, we're not talking about a situation where let's just have Sonny be the third safety. We're talking about if they got to the 6th. I know.
It's on film. People know what he can do athletically. I think the question that really, for me, is obviously we've had really productive play out of Lathan Ransom when he's been healthy, but he has not been able to stay entirely healthy through a season. But one time? So if that happens again this season, then you have no issues at all for the 2024 season. But the idea that they're going to get through what could be a 16-game schedule without having some bumps and bruises and a missed time here or there seems unlikely to me. So the question is, Malik Hartford and the rocket ship he was on a year ago, that rocket ship slowed down quite a bit. And some of that was injury. Some of that was maybe the stage getting too big for him when he played the one play against Michigan, for example. But then you have Jaden Bonsu, who you just don't really know what you're going to get as far as during the regular season. He seemed to to make a move this spring, but that more than likely was just a result of the fact that Lathan wasn't participating and neither was Malik Hartford. So I look at safety and you're like, okay, they're for a safety driven defense, and that cliche still matters because it is still what Jim Knowles wants. If you go into this season with really knowing you only have two guys that you can count on, that's a problem.
It doesn't matter to you. Like, sorry, Austin, but like, I thought, and granted, we didn't see much, so a lot of this maybe is based off of more of what we heard than what we've seen, although we did see some. Like, Jaden Bonsu and Jalen McClain went out there and played with arguably the best defense in the country in the spring. Granted, it's the spring, and didn't look out of place. And like, we're playing against Ohio State's starting offense for a lot of that time, and we think Ohio State's going to have a pretty good offense. Like, I think it's quite possible that Ohio State came out of the spring thinking it can count on Jaden Bonsu and Jalen McClain, and I think Malik Hartford as well, even though we didn't see him. So like, I don't know that I would agree with there's only two you can count on. Like, there's two that are like studs, no doubt about it. And there's a level below that where the other guys probably operate, but whether or not they're reliable, I think it's a different conversation. And I thought that Jaden Bonsu and Jalen McClain seemed to take a nice step forward in the spring.
My hope is that you're right.
I think that number 6 is probably too high for me. That would feel like you're more concerned than confident on that scale of 1 to 10. And
I did say maybe a 6, maybe it could be a 5, it could be a 6. Depends on what day it is. Today's what, Thursday? Thursday, it's a 6.
Okay, but I think it would probably feel different if Malik Hartford had been healthy in spring. I think that changes a lot, and it's important to remember how encouraged Ohio State was by him coming out of training camp last year, getting those reps and opportunities in the first month of the season. Yes, it tapered off a little bit, and no, that shouldn't be a surprise for a true freshman. But the fact that he had done enough to take those opportunities early on tells you how highly Ohio State thinks of Malik Hartford. Getting himself physically ready for year 2 is important. Getting the understanding of the system and what is being asked of safeties at Ohio State, not something that people generally grasp onto immediately in 1 year, let alone doing that as a true freshman. So I think those things are important to keep in mind as Malik Hartford comes back. I was trying to put that back into the perspective. Now, he wasn't there in spring, so we can evaluate whatever was out there. Jaden Bonsu had almost been like out of sight, out of mind for me. I remember going into March, and Bill and I were talking about this position group. Like, Jaden Bonsu was not really on my radar for helping Ohio State at all. Now, injuries certainly changed that. Lathan Ransom being limited, Malik Hartford not being out there, portal defections in the winter. All those things put him in a spot where there was more on his plate. And I thought, again, 5 practice windows that we saw, not all complete. He did not look out of place out there, and bursting out there and getting a student appreciation day where he's with the ones. Thought that he handled that pretty well for the most part. Again, I am not Matt Guerrieri or Jim Knowles. Their opinion on that matters a lot more. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, when we get back out there to talk with the assistants and the coordinators, we'll get a better feel for what they think he did. And also seeing Inky Jones out there, again, it sounds crazy for me to keep talking about a walk-on, but like, he made plays every time we were out there. So Ohio State, not usually a program that wants to like count on walk-ons playing prominent roles, but there's been just about at least one every single year for the last 5 or 6 years that have taken an opportunity to be a preferred walk-on and made the most out of that. So it doesn't feel to me like a panic. Now but I understand why. If you look at the overall numbers, they're not where Ohio State would want them to be.
It's not even just at the overall numbers. It's the lack of experience depth and at a position that dictates what the entire defense really can do. So if you look at it, I would, and I know people will scoff, but losing Cam Martinez, losing Jihad Carter, losing guys that who played a lot of football throughout and seen a lot of football at least. I think that's where I get like, well, that's a little bit iffy. I think they upgraded in talent. I think that Jaden Bonsu and Jalen McClain and Malik Hartford and even Leroy Roker, when he gets into campus at the end of May, I think from a ceiling standpoint, they're way higher than they were previously. But I also think that there's no one that you can count on to say, well, look, Lathan's out this week or Caleb's dinged up, and now you just don't know for sure what you have. And that's where I get a little bit skittish. And that's why I think the Buckeyes are, hosting this weekend Cameron Broussard, the transfer from Sacramento State, hosting Jaden Mangum, the safety transfer from Michigan State, guys that are more experienced, because I think you have to have guys that have seen football played in front of them a little bit more than the Buckeyes have. And that's where my concern vacillates between that 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, so we think they're going to add, right? Or they're certainly trying to. Do we think they're going to?
They're trying. That's what's the important thing, Bill, that you try your best.
I'm just having a hard time. And I talked about this on the radio with Austin on Wednesday morning. Like, what's the compelling sales pitch that gets Jaden Mangum or Cameron Broussard to be like, yeah, I'll go to Ohio State, when they already have Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs, and presumably those guys would like to start. But even that, but they can get money and start somewhere else, right?
Maybe.
And how much? I mean, and that's the other question: is how much does Ohio State think that it actually has to spend? That would tell you how concerned they are. If they feel like they have to outbid Michigan or Nebraska or whoever else winds up being in the market for these two players, like, then they are concerned. If not, if they don't wind up with either one, that tells me that they don't feel like they have to loosen up the purse strings to add a third or fourth safety.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear that they would like to. They are not bringing these guys in for official visits just for fun. They're not called fun initial visits. They're official.
They're definitely not called that.
These are business decisions that are being made. And again, it is not easy to say someone, hey, we have Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom, and you're probably only going to play 10 to 15 snaps a game if you're lucky. But at the same time, you get a chance to compete for a national championship. If you have multiple years, you have a chance to be a starter at Ohio State next year, and you get to play with Caleb Downs.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out because Cam Broussard is a 2020 recruit. So I don't imagine he has eligibility beyond this year.
2020, 2021, 23, 24. He would have a fifth year.
Yeah. This is the fifth year.
I'm sure that they found another year in there for him.
Yeah. If there's a way to, and like Magnum has 2 years of eligibility left. So like, come be a rotational player, then start for us a year from now, I guess, is fairly compelling. I also wonder too if, like, because these are, they're not massive swings at safety, but they're bigger swings than like, let's go get a guy so we can have enough practice bodies, right? So I am wondering if maybe there's some dialogue about just how much they're going to move safeties around, because I've had in the back of my head, and I'm not trying to like stir something up necessarily, but when I asked Tim Walton during the spring about like who can play nickel, like he did mention Caleb Downs' name, which is not surprising because Caleb Downs can play anywhere in the secondary. But if there's an idea that they're going to move him around some, and maybe there would be an opportunity for somebody else to like play a little bit of adjuster or bandit while Caleb Downs is running around making football plays, like maybe there is a quasi starter rotational role that Ohio State is able to sell these guys on.
Well, Caleb's got to be the third string running back, so
that too.
You got to figure out someone else to play safety.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, that's a lot of wild positional speculation for one segment, but
and returning punts, and I mean, the guy's going to be busy, so
he's not going to QB. Punts.
Yeah.
But that's if we're going to talk about raising the ceiling for Ohio State at safety, we have to talk about the addition of Caleb Downs. And I think, Bill, it was nice to watch him have a spring at Ohio State.
I still haven't wrapped my mind around it. Like, I'm waiting for the MTV cameras to run out and we're all in an episode of Punk'd. Like, just kidding. He's still at Alabama. It's wild, man. He's so good. And like, I know that maybe like the spring game like wasn't like the Caleb Downs show or whatever, right? But just trust me, man. Like, when fall comes around and that dude's out there in Ohio State's defense, it's going to be a sight to behold. He is maybe the best football player in the country. Not even the best safety. He's just an incredibly smart player on top of being immensely physically talented. I've enjoyed talking to him too while he's been at Ohio State. He's just like got the total package. So like the idea that they were able to get that kid and still have 2 more years of him is very hard to wrap your mind around. I suppose I will finally accept it as reality when we watch them in the opener and he's out there with Ohio State's defense.
No. I'm still looking for where to send a thank you card to Nick Saban. If anyone has that address, please just leave it in the comments. But
he's out there begging for Little Debbie snack cake. So if you could send him some oatmeal cream pie,
that's actually the way to go.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, smart.
Yeah. So we
Nick
didn't.
Saban loves cream pies.
He did you hear him during the NFL draft? He's like, they never sent me any for free. He gave them all this advertising for years. Like
I did. Normally, Nick Saban pays for cream pies. That's what we've learned.
Huh. Is this a bit, Berm? Are you trying to get us like move to a different channel? I'm
just saying. Normally, he pays for them.
Okay. That took a strange turn. Anyway, let's move on. We left nickel out of the cornerback conversation, but it does feel like that has become a spot that is more owned by the corners than the safeties, at least compared to 2 years ago when Jim Knowles arrived and it was like, got to have Tanner McAllister here to be the third safety.
Yeah, I do. I still wonder what a Jim Knowles perfect world, like what's that player look like? Like, I think the presence of Jordan Hancock on the roster when Jim Knowles got here, like forced the issue in a very good way, not in a bad way. And I think maybe in his past, like he's kind of done both, like had either a safety and a corner there, depending on the year. So I like the idea of having like a corner type, more of a corner type like Jordan Hancock in that spot, or like Lorenzo Styles or Jermaine Matthews, perhaps moving forward. So I don't know. Do we know whether or not the secondary meets all together? Are they still separate? They're all doing it the same.
I think they're all together now because Tim Walton is the secondary coach.
Right.
That was the conversation to put them all together in one room and be more collaborative. And I don't believe that they have changed that since they made that shift.
Yeah, I was wondering if like Jordan Hancock has to double up on his meetings, but I guess he doesn't have to.
It is because of Jordan Hancock that they all meet together.
Yeah, good for him. That's good.
And Lorenzo Styles.
What you got when Jim Knowles arrived and brought Tanner McAllister, it's because he had to have somebody in that spot that he trusted and somebody who knew the defense. And then Jordan Hancock is like the perfect fit for that spot. So I don't know why you would even think about anyone else other than the fact that you just need to give Jordan a break sometimes. But he's exactly what you need at nickel. And
they're recruiting with that mindset too, right? Like Miles Lockhart and
I don't know. I mean, Miles is obviously a little bit smaller than Jordan, but you don't find a lot of 6'1", corners that have the ability to be as physical as Jordan does. So he's sort of the perfect fit for that. And if we go back to the 2019 Ohio State defense, which is one of the better defenses in our collective lifetimes, like it's because they had Sean Wade in that spot and he was an eraser in that role. And that's what Jordan Hancock's done. So like, it's clear that for all the talk about a safety driven defense, like that is the engine of the safety position, I think, because once you have that figured out, you can do a lot of other things.
So it's really a nickel-driven defense.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Wow. We've really got there, folks. We figured it out. We've cracked the code. It only took 2+ years of working and learning and absorbing Jim Knowles' system to figure it all out. He was really only talking about one position, but the podcast daily for Thursday was about all of those safeties. Hope you enjoyed it. It is, of course, Thursday. We'll have one more episode this week, and we're out of positions. So
special teams.
Should we do Berm's special teams breakdown, or should we open up the notebook on Freaky Friday?
We definitely don't need to do a full show on special teams.
Yeah.
Although there are a lot of questions about it.
We'll take some cues. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let us know. If you want a special teams breakdown, put it in the comments and don't just let Berm talk you into it. Maybe we'll do it next week. May is a long month, the longest one on the calendar for us. We'll get to that in some form or fashion, but I think it'll be a Freaky Friday when we come back to talk to you all tomorrow. For Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham, I'm Austin Ward. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you then.